Welcome to the Design Dash podcast, your guide to designing a life you love. Join us as we explore the keys to living the life you want without compromise. We're going to start, as we always do, by thanking our wonderful partners at Monogram Appliances. Monogram Appliances sponsors all of the podcasts here at Design Dash, and we absolutely love them because they believe in the exact same things that we believe in, and that is that we as creators can really get behind their materials. The quality of their materials is absolutely second to none. High-performing products and ownership. And of course, they just have an amazing team that's committed to high quality innovation, and we have an excellent relationship with them. So thank you, Monogram.
Thanks, Monogram. And today we have Allie Danziger as our guest. She has a heartfelt passion for helping ambitious people succeed with over 15 years of experience leading, mentoring, and recruiting. In 2009, Allie started one of Texas's top marketing agencies, Integrate Agency, who we worked with at Laura Design Collective. And then she sold Integrate in 2018. Under her leadership at Integrate Agency, they generated $15 million in revenue, employed over 250 young professionals, and helped over 600 clients grow. In 2020, Allie used her experience in coaching, training, and hiring hundreds of employees to found Ampersand, a leading workplace training platform. They're focused on teaching unwritten rules of the workplace. So those skills that young professionals may not know coming out of school and into the workforce. So the company's training platform has lifted up over 10,000 professionals. We've actually at Laura Design Collective had the, I was gonna say benefit, because it is a benefit to us, but we've had really a successful working relationship with interns from Ampersand. So Ampersand was then acquired by Ascent Funding in 2023 to scale the company's mission to support student success. So Allie now leads Ascent Up as the SVP and GM of their Ascent Up program. She remains dedicated to eliminating the skills gap from higher education to employment, breaking systemic barriers in place for young professionals entering the workforce. So she lives in Houston, and with her husband, who is also a serial entrepreneur, and two young daughters, Millie and Eve. So welcome, Allie. Thanks so much for joining us. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited, and so excited for you guys doing this wonderful podcast.
I know, we're always just on to like the new fun thing, and what's better than getting to talk to entrepreneurs and women who have built lives they love. So just jumping right in, you have started and exited successfully 2 businesses. So as a serial entrepreneur, I'd love to know what drives that spirit. What makes you want to build something, because you're putting so much of yourself into building something and then exiting. What's driving you?
Well, a little bit of crazy, probably.
A lot of crazy.
Yeah. In both times, in terms of creating the businesses, I just saw a problem. Like no one was doing what I thought felt so natural and so necessary. And rather than complaining about it, put my money where my mouth is, or the work, if not money, to solve that problem or that gap. So the first time around, I was really young when starting that marketing agency, but social media was just on the rise, and a lot of companies were avoiding the topic of social media. They were too scared to do anything, or they were going the opposite approach and not really thinking that it was a big deal, and having like their kids as interns or something to start and handle that digital marketing. So in that company, I just thought that was crazy. It was like, we need to be professional about this. This is going to be the next wave of communication, as we obviously know that it became. And so started that company because like no one else was taking it seriously. And I thought it really needed to, even though I was young. Second time around, after working with hundreds of young professionals, whether they were from high school, Harvard, or somewhere in between, and seeing the same problem over and over again, and both educators and employers pointing fingers at each other, saying it's your job to train them and prepare them for the workforce. I thought someone needs to do it. Like there's significantly a problem here, and it's not a 2020 problem, but it's been happening for generations, that no one seems to enter the workforce with the knowledge of how to be a professional grown-up. So went out to solve that.
And You did, because we've seen it firsthand at Laura U Design Collective with the interns that we've worked with from Ampersand. But going back to, you started Integrate, as you said, when you were really young. I think you were in your early 20s or like mid 20s, 24.
Yeah.
24.
Crazy.
Yeah. So that's young to start a company. So you've started 2 companies that I know of, maybe more, but starting Integrate at 24 and then starting Ampersand at a different time of your life.
Yeah.
What was the big difference between starting super young and then your second startup, where you were like personally?
Well, personally, first time around, single, living on your own, and can like have complete freedom to work until 2 a.m. Without any like judgment or spouses or anything. I mean, I did put my entire life into that company, probably too much. And I can certainly talk about that. Like the company was my identity, and it was good and bad, but that's how it was able to be successful, especially at such a young age. Second time around, 2 kids, a pandemic, a spouse, and a life that makes everything just so much different. I cannot, and I will not, work until 2 a.m. And so instead have to like make sacrifices both professionally and personally and weigh those balances. There's also like, I'm a big risk taker, but there's something different about taking risks, knowing that impacts your children and like their education or their upbringing if this all crumbles down. So there's a lot very, very, very different in terms of like what keeps you up at night and what drives you. The first time around was like, why is anyone going to believe a 24-year-old? I've got to hustle and work my tail off to gain that trust and respect. Second time around, maybe there is a little bit of that, but you're hustling because it's like shorter work times and you have to get more done in a shorter amount of time. That said, you can, because you've learned some of those lessons. You know where to spend your time. The first time around, never invested in like professional development. I was never reading or growing myself. I was like, the harder I work, the better everything will be, and didn't think I needed to spend time on like developing my network or developing as a leader or developing my teams. Second time around, I learned so much that hard work that feels like unnecessary time is actually the most important work. So was able to just prioritize and spend my time differently. That I think really paid off.
That's okay. So I have a follow-up question. So the things that you're spending time on the second time around that you may not have thought of as necessary work, what are those? And is there guilt? Like, I don't know. I find that sometimes if I'm like working on the business, big picture, but I'm not like in it doing the nitty gritty actual services work, I sometimes feel guilty because I'm like, is this real work?
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way?
I have, absolutely. And I think we've talked about this before. There's some key books that I've read that have changed my mindset around
I was going to bring that up.
Only took like 4 minutes?
I know.
So there's key things that I've learned about myself, of where my skill sets are and what I'm good at and what I can contribute to the world. And I try to spend as much time as possible on those things and bring others around me to do the things that I'm not great at. First 15 years of my career, I had a lot of shame around that. And then I think I've just much more embraced that now to say, hey, do what you're good at and bring other people around you to do what you're not great at. The book that I'm referring to is Rocket Fuel. I'm a visionary. I come up with ideas. The bigger, the better. The more inspiring it is, the bigger the idea. And I have to have really strong people around me to help actually bring those ideas to life. Now, I'm a driver, so like I'm going to work really hard alongside them to get those things done. But there's certain things that I have an Achilles heel around, like with administrative work that's so important, or operations that's so important to make sure that things run smoothly. And so if I can spend my time coming up with the ideas and inspiring and encouraging those around me to like implement those ideas alongside me, then it's just going to be that much more impactful. Yes, one day this author is going to like pay me because of how much I talk about it. But in the meantime, I just keep copies in my office and hand them out to whoever needs a bout of inspiration.
I literally have a copy right behind me. I bet Melissa has one too. And so
Right
this
over
is
there.
the author is Gino Wickman, and he started Entrepreneurs Operating System, so EOS. And we still do this at Laura U. We run EOS system with some modifications just because we've been running that system for a really long time. And so in some ways we've, tweaked it to where it works for us. And in some ways we're really faithful to that original EOS system. So I'm also that visionary person in our firm. Melissa is integrator. So she is like our operations guru. Thank God for her. But anyway, EOS and Rocket Fuel is the first book. And Allie recommended this to me early, like, I don't know, 7 years ago, maybe longer. Probably. I don't even know, Allie.
Yeah.
But it changed my business. It changed the way we run our business.
And hopefully,
Melissa,
Laura, it changes the way you all. Oh, sorry. Hopefully it also changes the way that you think about like the time spent, right? So that you can spend your time in your business on the most impactful things. So that especially, you mentioned like as a working mom, when you are working, you are doing like the best use of your time possible, both for the business and something that energizes you. For me, like any of those integrator things really drain me and make me exhausted. I got to do, like in a small business, in a startup, like, sure, I have to do the operational things often. But I know that the best use of my time is just like selling, brainstorming, inspiring, and some of that just like thinking work. And it's not like I'm like sitting and meditating, thinking all the time as much as I, would love to do that. But like diving into strategies and brainstorms and like bringing smart people around me to bounce ideas off of in the best possible way.
So you're not just sitting there and like in a guru, like yogi position and saying, oh, this is a good idea. Write this down and execute it.
Ideas. No, and I think sometimes we think that, when you like hear those things. Although, like my best ideas definitely come on runs or in a yoga class. But my team knows like those 6 a.m. emails of like, guess what I just thought of on my run.
Those are the best. Mine are my hikes. I go on hikes and I'm like, I'm making like notes to myself. It's kind of a sickness. Anyway.
Melissa, as an integrator, we're expecting them to come through. I'm always looking forward to that 6 a.m. email. Mine
are more like,
as an integrator, my first thought is like, how can I take this apart? That's my approach.
That's why we love you.
Let's talk a little bit about that. So we mentioned a little bit about Ampersand and how we found Valentina, who is here on our Design Dash team and on our Laura U team. We found her through Ampersand, and she is absolutely fantastic. I felt like she got a lot of great training. I mean, we can dive into that if you want to. But you also talked a little bit about inspiring teams and inspiring maybe these people who are in the younger generation. And I know that, like, I think Valentina is Gen Z, and they get so much flack. But they're also like our future generation of entrepreneurs. So, like, what are you seeing that they're doing right, maybe? And then what advice do you have for them to maybe, if they want to go down your path, have their own business and really take control of their professional lives?
For sure. Yeah. So one of the things that I think Gen Z does well is, they definitely know how to advocate for themselves, which is amazing because the generations that follow certainly do not. And that will make incredible entrepreneurs that I can't wait to see. Like once this generation has the professional experience to go launch the next great things, it's going to be incredible. So that's one. The second is like their dedication to impact and making, not just starting businesses necessarily just for the sake of starting businesses. Not that any of us did that, but I do think that Gen Z is just so focused on what impact they're having and making sure that what they're doing does have greater global, not necessarily global, but just that it does have some greater impact. So those are wonderful. And then just growing up with technology in a way that no generation ever has before allows them to do things faster, quicker, more nimbly than we've ever seen. So it certainly frustrates employers. But if you think about all the positives of the things that employers are currently frustrated by, they're going to make incredible business leaders and entrepreneurs when they get there. My advice would be like, slow down and chill a little bit because from my experience, and we've worked with thousands now, they are like, I've graduated, or I've, chosen this non-graduation path, and I am ready to be a manager and make this type of salary and be leading teams and starting a business. And it's incredible. Like, the passion is amazing. And they have a lot to learn. We all do. I started a company at 24, which is very, very young. Not that I regret that, but I also had 8 internships in college that prepared me for only having 2 years of professional experience to then start that. So I did have a little bit of a different traditional work experience or amount of work experience than other 24-year-olds that I do think gave me a little bit of a leg up to start that. Now, at that time, like, Mark Zuckerberg was the only person who I could look up to and see a young entrepreneur. Now you've got like billions of TikTok stars who are millionaires from not doing too much, which is great, where they've done a lot. Sorry, that was not appropriate. But there's a lot more entrepreneurs that young professionals have the opportunity to look up to, which is fantastic. And it also makes it seem like it's really easy. I just did that. I just said they haven't done that much, these Instagram influencers, which they absolutely have. So it makes the path seem easier than it actually is, because there's so many more of them than there used to be. And it's so easily and in your face through social media. So my only suggestion, going back to that, is just to like slow down, take the road, know that not every internship has to be like the most perfect internship. Not every first job is going to be where you retire from, and that's okay. And just take the experiences in for the experience itself, so that you can learn, continue growing your knowledge, continue growing your like professional network, to then keep building on to get to where you want to go.
That's a good one too. You also brought up networking. And I know that in our audience, networking is just terrifying, right? And especially when you're really young and you don't know anybody, and you know that you have to network, but you don't know how to network. Like, how did you get started with that? And how did you build your network? Like, where would you even start?
So from me, I'm very fortunate that my dad was in sales always. So he was always like, bringing me along to different things. It's the rodeo in Houston right now. He was bringing me to like cook off in the rodeo with him, and taking me around to like all these different promotions and stuff. So I was always seeing it and seeing him do that. And he was teaching me from a young age, like how important your network is and the people that can support you in your career. So I'm very fortunate that I had that. Now, how to get started is to look at your network, whether that's at school, your internships or jobs, your community, your, even like neighborhood, and look to people that you admire. You want to be like them. You want to have a career like them, and start writing down things about them that inspire you or that gravitate you towards them for whatever reason, and start collecting kind of like a list of the different people that that you want to be more like. Once you have that list, we recommend reaching out to them and letting them know, hey, Melissa, the way that you seem to be, the way that you live your life, the way that you've built your career is really inspiring to me. And I'd love to take you to coffee to learn more about how you got there. Those types of informational interviews is what we call it, can help at a very like low scary way to build your network. Then I go to coffee with Melissa. Melissa hopefully is impressed by what I bring to the table in that informational interview. It can be 15 minutes. And then she wants to help me more. And so then I say, I'm looking for an internship. I'm looking for a job in this kind of field, in maybe your field or maybe not your field. And oftentimes, and we've all been there, Melissa is now inspired to go send my resume to 3 more people. And then those 3 more people, I have the same types of coffee meetings with them. And then they each introduce me to 3 more people. And then it trickles from there. So that's like a very, not going to like a huge networking event or a big conference, but a casual, calm coffee, can even be over Zoom, that can help to slowly build that and help to build that comfort. I often recommend starting that with someone that you know tangentially, just to like get the nerves out of the way and mess up a couple of times with someone that's low risk, so that when you ask that really important person to coffee, you're confident in what you're saying. Lots of back work to go into that I'm happy to explain, of like how to get your elevator pitch down and how to drive like what you're actually going to say and the questions to ask. But yeah, we can go that direction if helpful. One tip though that I do like to do on that. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So give us a tip. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So when you're going to like the scary person, the big one that is probably going to say no, I like to send them a Starbucks gift card for just $10 and say, I'd love to take you to coffee, but I know you have a really busy schedule. So can we just have a virtual coffee? Here's coffee on me. All I need is 15 minutes of your time. And it has a very high success rate.
So I love this because we've been talking about nerves around people that haven't networked before. In my mind, it's like going to these big parties or these industry events and like how scary that can be to go by yourself. So I really love this like grassroots, start small approach, even though it is nerve-wracking. That one-on-one, I think, takes the nerves down a little bit, especially if you do it like a couple times. So yeah, thanks for that. Exactly. I love it.
Laura, if you are going to like a big event that you want to go to and you feel scared by yourself, one thing that I love to do is go to the board of that organization and reach out to someone on the board, just one person, like whether it's a nonprofit or if it's one of the hosts or something, like stalk it on LinkedIn and find one person that you know will be there. Or even, they don't even have to be going there, and reach out to them and say, I'm really interested in attending this event. I'm going to be going alone. Will you be there? Would love to connect with you. The board member will likely not be going there, but they want you to be successful because they want that event to be successful. So they will connect you to someone that will be there. And then that person will be looking out for you from a board member. And they'll introduce you to a couple people there. So whether that's a professional development, networking group, something with your school, that's kind of like a no-fail way to have a buddy.
Oh, okay. That's so smart. Allie, you've definitely done this before.
Yeah, I know. And for introverts, especially, I think that's just so critical. And I don't want people to feel like I just can't go. Like I'm too shy. I can't go. So these are all really good tips. I love it. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit, just pivoting. I want to talk about Ampersand, and from going from startup to acquisition, and what that journey was like, because I mean, both of our husbands are entrepreneurs. So I've seen it through Michael going through that process, but I'd love to hear what your experience was like having a startup. It's kind of like it's your baby, like you're building this company and then going through a sale. You've done it twice, but I feel like Ampersand was maybe a little different than Integrate. So I'd love to hear about it.
They were really different. And I can quickly explain how they were different for me, because I think that also can tell the story and the journey a little bit. So as I mentioned briefly before, Integrate was like my baby. I started when I was 24. I didn't have kids, and I put everything into that company, and my identity was truly wrapped in this agency. I decided to sell because I wanted to grow that company, and I knew that I was limited by my own skill set, and in terms of like the additional services that we wanted to offer. Sold the company, and it was very challenging for me personally and emotionally, because everything was me. And then all of a sudden it was like a Band-Aid being ripped off, and it wasn't me anymore at all. It wasn't my brand. It had my name. I wasn't in complete control of decisions. We had all these other services that I all of a sudden knew nothing about. And it was just really, really hard for me emotionally. So second time around, having the benefit of all the lessons learned from that, I certainly poured my heart and soul into the success of that of Ampersand. But my identity was not wrapped up in it quite as much. And it was always built to sell one day. I had outside investors, so I knew that one day this was not going to be my baby anymore. With Integrate, I didn't know that. It wasn't built necessarily for that intention. That was just the growth path that I decided after 13 years. So going at it with a different mentality certainly changed when I went through the acquisition. I was not only thinking about like my own ego with choosing the right partner, which I was the first time around. But I was thinking about my investors. I was thinking about like this larger vision of what I was trying to create, which was way bigger than a social media and PR agency. Not that there's any, like, that was great. I loved what we did and how we were able to help so many businesses grow. But with Ampersand, I like still really believe that we can change the trajectory of the education system and workforce development, and to date, 50,000 people's lives and livelihood and long-term income generation. So because of that, like there was just less ego in it. Like it just had to be successful. And so by finding the right partner to partner with for an acquisition, it was much more about like, who's the right home to ensure that this larger vision actually comes to life. And then once it did, once I did choose the right partner, it was really about, and still is about, like, how do we make sure that this is successful and grows in just a different way? Like hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think that's really insightful. Just, and it's similar, I think, to our path with Design Dash. So we just have a bigger vision. We want to touch more people and talk to more people. Laura, you as a services business, it's very personal. It's very one-on-one. We're working directly with a client, just like similar. You were B2B, we're B2C. Yeah. But yeah, I think so I totally get it. And yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Melissa, what else you got? I have one more question before we
go ahead, ask it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, so I'd like to know, making this informed decision about how you were going to start and sell Ampersand. I guess looking at it as a whole, Integrate and Ampersand, have you thought about this as designing your life? Not just your businesses, but your family, like keeping your family in mind, how you want to travel, how you want to live. Did you start at the beginning thinking about that?
Not Integrate. So Integrate, it was just like fell in my lap. And the backstory to how I started Integrate is I was working for a PR agency in New York. I ended up starting that company's social media department. I was freelancing on the side to make more money. And I was trying to bring these clients into the agency. And it wasn't a good fit for the agency. And so then I just kept growing more and more freelance business until I just had a company, because like I needed to work on that full time. And then I like looked around, I needed to hire people, and then I needed to get an office because we had so many people. And then I guess I just started a company, right? So it was not intentional. I can tell this, that's the honest story. That's not the pretty story with a bow on it.
I am shocked.
With Ampersand, it was so intentional. So not a new story, but summer of 2020 happened. And I was like, I need to make sure that I'm being really mindful about how I'm spending my time and in a lot of ways, like with my kids. That summer we picked up and went to Colorado for the summer. And I had the best summer of my entire life and was like, I need a life where I can make this a reality forever. And I wanted to make sure that whatever I work really hard when I'm working, and I put my everything into it. And so I was like, if I'm going to be working this hard, I need to be incredibly passionate about what I'm doing. And so I was very, very mindful about building Ampersand. I had a list of all these different problems that I thought needed to be solved in the world, and talked to hundreds of people to talk through this. At the same time, though, as I was intentionally trying to build my next thing, knowing that I wanted it to fit within my life. One of them was a nail polish company. I mean, it was all over the place. I was also spending every Friday mentoring and coaching young professionals who had lost their jobs, lost their internships, or were deciding whether or not to go back to college. So that's how I spent my summer. Also, still running the agency, but I was in Colorado, having the best summer of my life, spending time with my kids, trying to intentionally think about how do I want to spend my time. I was using the book, The Artist's Way, to guide me through that.
We process. Just talked about it yesterday. That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And spending extra time on Fridays, coaching and mentoring people. And then I would sit down with my husband over wine on Friday nights, be like, oh, I love doing this. And I would tell him all the stories of the people who I had helped. And it kind of was like right in front of my face. To your point, Laura, I was on a hike and I was like, oh, this is the business. Like, this is right here. This is what I love to do. This is what I've always been doing. This is what has always fired me up. And I can build this in a way that scales, that works around my life, and takes my professional career to the level that I wanted it to go.
Love it. Yep. Okay. So it is intentional. Didn't start out that way. Now thoughtful.
Yes.
So I think we have time for one more chat. Melissa, what you got?
Well, I mean, it sounds like, intentional or not, however you started to where you finished, it sounds like you've just done everything right. Like, you seem really happy with where you are. You're making a difference in the lives of the people that you serve. But if you had to go back and change one thing about your trajectory, what would it be?
It's so hard with hindsight, right? Because everything, even like the mistakes I've made or things that I haven't done well, have still gotten me to where I am, and lessons learned that have been super important. There's a couple that come to mind. One is around one of my early employees at Integrate, and I didn't thank her enough for like how impactful she was to the business. She knows now, and we have a great relationship, but she worked with me for 10 years, and I could not have built that company without her. And I should have like made her a partner or done something different. Because she was so important. And I just it like pains me that I didn't do that properly. What it has taught me, though, is in my next business, I made sure that my co-founders, my employees, they all had really generous equity and the right types of structures to their employment, because I won't make that mistake again. And I still have a great relationship with this employee that I'm speaking of. So that's one, but again, has like really taught me about how to make sure you value and coach and mentor your employees, the ones that like really, really matter. So that's one. I don't know. I mean, like I have other, like my husband traveled to San Francisco for 8 years for his own profession, and I didn't. And I stayed in Houston and built my agency. And I am so grateful that like we had the partnership that we could each be doing our own things professionally. But now I'm never going to move to San Francisco, and we didn't have kids. And why didn't I just move to San Francisco? But I can say that because I didn't, and I was able to build an agency and sell it, and then like take that to my next company. And had I gone to San Francisco, probably wouldn't have had that opportunity. So that's why like that is one of those like life regret things. That's like, what was I thinking? But at the same time,
it all worked out. It still all worked out.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
I don't know, like, sure, like there's like little things like both professionally and with my kids and stuff like that like we all have the both professional and mom guilt around. But it's all working out. So it's okay.
Yeah. Do we know this employee from Integrate? I bet we do.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. So I think this is all really good. So we'll wrap it up. And I'd love to know, Allie, if our listeners want to find you on socials or LinkedIn, if you can share your handle.
Allie Danziger. I'm pretty easy to find. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. It's just across everything. That's so easy.
Everything.
Okay.
Yes.
And if you love our podcast and our brand of Chitty Chat, please follow, like, and subscribe on anywhere you listen to podcasts. So thanks so much, and cheers to designing a life you love.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out our next podcast, coming live next week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. In the meantime, you can find us and more wonderful stories like these on designdash.com. And make sure to follow us at Design Dasher on Instagram and TikTok. Till next time.